Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever driven something that makes pedestrians stop, stare, and whisper, "Is that a spaceship or a submarine that got lost on land?" Well, the answer was neither. It was the Tatra T87, a Czech machine so ahead of its time that it had to wait for the rest of the world to catch up by about 40 years. This wasn't just a car. It was a flying saucer that accidentally touched down in 1936 Czechoslovakia, made out of steel, genius, and just enough madness to make it perfect. Before we open the dorsal fin and unleash the V8 magic, a warm thank you to our channel sponsors. Yes, you, wonderful people, keeping the lights on and the rear-mounted comedy engine humming. Your support means Timmy can continue his historical deep dives, which mostly involve sneaking into barns marked private, getting chased by geese, and declaring he found a lost Tatra prototype that turned out to be a flipped trailer. Meanwhile, Bob is currently petitioning UNESCO to recognize his garage as an anti-alien bunker of cultural significance. Now, buckle in, ideally at the rear of the car, next to the engine, and let's dive into the streamlined insanity that was the Tatra T87. Launched in 1936, the Tatra T87 was the brainchild of engineers Hans Ledwinka and Erich Überlacher, two men who apparently looked at the laws of physics and said, "Nah, we'll write our own." Built by Tatra in Kopřivnice, Czechoslovakia, the T87 was designed to be lighter, faster, and smarter than its older sibling, the T77. While Europe still battled bricks on wheels and boxy sedans, Tatra unleashed a sleek aerodynamic monster with rear-mounted V8 power and the kind of curves that would have made a Zeppelin blush. Design inspiration came from Paul Jaray, a dirigible aerodynamicist. Yes, a man who designed blimps helped shape this car. Which explains a lot, really. The drag coefficient, a scandalously low 0.36 measured in the 1930s. That's better than most 1980s hatchbacks. The T87 wasn't just ahead of the curve, it was the curve. The goal was simple: build a luxury machine that could blast down the new Czech and German highways at Autobahn speeds while sipping fuel like a gentleman. It targeted officials, engineers, and eccentric intellectuals who wanted speed, comfort, and the ability to terrify pedestrians with those integrated fender headlights. But timing, as Bob constantly says between bunker drills, is everything. The T87 was born into a storm. Europe was edging toward war, economies were trembling, and Hitler was eyeing everyone's borders like a greedy monopoly player. The Germans loved the T87, by the way, so much so that Nazi officers drove them during the war. Rumor has it several Luftwaffe officers crashed them at high speed, and the car was allegedly banned by Hitler himself. There's no hard proof, but Timmy swears his great-uncle heard it from a guy in a bar who might have been a time traveler. Despite these turbulent years, 3,056 T87s were built between 1936 and 1950. Post-war, the communists resumed production with leftover tooling. But mass production was never the point. The T87 was handmade madness, and that never scales. Let's pop the tail and have a look. The Tatra T87's heart was a 2.97-litre air-cooled 90-degree V8 mounted behind the passengers, like a turbocharged Secret. It pumped out 85 horsepower, modest by today's standards, but enough to push this 3,020-pound. 1,370 kilograms spaceship to 100 miles per hour, 160 kilometers per hour. With a compression ratio of just 5.8 to 1, the T87 wasn't picky about fuel either. The engine featured chain-driven single overhead cams per bank, hemispherical combustion chambers, aluminium heads. It was like Czech engineers were dared to make it complicated, and they took it personally. The gearbox? A 4-speed manual with synchromesh on the upper gears, sending power to the rear wheels via swing axles. Yes, the same swing axles that could turn your leisurely Sunday drive into a physics experiment. Underneath, the T87 sported independent front suspension with transverse leaf springs and hydraulic shocks. The rear used swing axles with torsion bars, which made handling interesting at speed. Braking came from 4 hydraulic drums, and yes, vacuum assist showed up later, probably after too many close calls. The chassis was a signature Tatra tubular backbone, a rigid spine that supported everything. The monocoque body was riveted onto it, and the whole rear clamshell, dorsal fin and all, opened up to reveal the engine, like a mechanical beetle showing off its guts. Size-wise, it stretched 15.5 feet, 4,740 millimeters long, 5.5 feet, 1,670 millimeters wide, with a wheelbase just over 9.3 feet, 2,850 millimeters. Height was a low-slung 4.9 feet. It consumed 12.5 liters per 100 kilometers, or around 18.8 miles per gallon. Excellent for a car that looked like it might consume smaller cars for breakfast. And then there's that dorsal fin. It wasn't just a styling joke, it added high-speed stability, like the tail of a fish that somehow grew a V8. And let's talk lawsuits. Ferdinand Porsche? He may have borrowed liberally from Tatra's designs when sketching the original Volkswagen Beetle. Same air-cooled layout, same aerodynamic principles. Tatra sued, and after the war, Volkswagen settled the case. Imagine that courtroom. Your Honor, we present Exhibit A, literally the whole car. Then there were the eccentric owners. Aviatrix Eliška Junková used one for high-speed European tours. Designer Ernst Heinkel reportedly had one. Jay Leno owns one and probably talks to it. And two modern-day adventurers, Paul Greenstein and Didier Delisle, even drove a T87 across the United States. After 1948, most T87s vanished behind the Iron Curtain. Collectors in the West didn't even know they existed. But when communism crumbled and the garage doors of Eastern Europe opened, the world rediscovered the T87, with most of them still complete, preserved, and slightly confused by capitalism. Back in the 1930s, the T87 cost a hefty Reichsmark 8,450 in Germany, over twice as much as an Opel Capitan. In Switzerland, it retailed for about 25,000 francs. That's around 45,000 euro to 60,000 euro. In today's money, $48,000 to $64,000. When it comes to auction prices, the T87 doesn't disappoint. Back in 2013, a beautifully restored 1948 model was sold by RM Auctions for a staggering $280,500, proving that the market had finally caught up to what Czech engineers knew in 1936. Fast forward to 2020, and the Elkhart collection shattered that number with a pristine post-war example fetching $302,000, a record at the time. Even in recent years, demand hasn't slowed. In 2024, an elegant T87 crossed the block at a Gouts in Paris, fetching €162,532, or about $171,000. Today, prices for well-preserved cars typically fall between $150,000 and $250,000, though Concours-level restorations can easily push north of $300,000. Just make sure your garage door clears the dorsal fin. The Tatra T87 wasn't just a car, it was a declaration. It shouted from the rear-mounted V8 mountaintops, "We can do things differently." And it did. With its space-age shape, mechanical bravery and stubborn refusal to follow trends, the T87 proved that genius can bloom in unexpected places, even in a Czech factory, under threat of war, building a car with suicide doors and the soul of a Zeppelin. Today, the T87 is a rolling sculpture, a reminder that weird is wonderful and tail fins can be functional. It was the Tesla of its time, if Tesla had been run by aerodynamicists with moustaches and a mild disregard for conventional physics. If you ever get the chance to see one in person, do. And that's the Tatra T87, the steel dagger in a world of butter knives. If you like this story, subscribe to the channel. And remember, always drive weird. It's more fun that way. See you next episode.